I sort of thought that being donor recognition chair just meant I had to get all your names spelled right. But I'm actually thrilled to be the one that gets to speak for all the furry creatures in this building. I hope you've seen them all. And I know if they could talk, they would say thank you from the bottom of their hearts and paws and tails. And there are some special thank yous I want to say before I get to you, the donors. One would be our architects, Robert Griffin of Griffin Associates, and Robbie Sweetser. Beverly Grant, our contractor, was phenomenal. Apparently, don't ask me, I was not on the building committee, but everybody who was raved about them, said they couldn't have been better to work with. Wonderful people. I'd like to join Catherine in thanking the board. The board worked so hard. So many of you are up on the donor boards, and your dogs and cats are up on the tiles, and you've been phenomenal. There wasn't a board member that didn't dig in with all their heart. And in fact, I'm about to segue into another category, which is significant others. All the landscaping outside was planted by a board member, Carol Harkins, who has done phenomenal things for us throughout the years. One of the best things she did was to start dating a guy named Rick Jones, who is a professional contractor. And he took 2 weeks off, moved his heavy equipment out here, his earth-moving stuff, and worked for 2 weeks getting in that landscaping. And when he would take a break, rephrase that, when Carol would give him a break, he came inside and put up the donor plaques and the tiles. He was absolutely phenomenal. And also in the significant other category, I want to thank Chris Shinar, who moved across the country, gave up a 15-year career with Microsoft under the assumption that he was coming out here to become engaged to his childhood sweetheart, our interim CEO, President Catherine McGowan. Instead, he wound up in a torrid affair with the Asheville Humane Society. And Chris not only installed all our tremendously complex computers and widgets and witsits and all the things that need to communicate and databases, but he does everything. Yesterday I was in Catherine's office, and here's super geek who knows how to do everything, sending her pictures from Michael saying, honey, is this the right color ribbon? Chris, you've been phenomenal. The hours you've put in have just been astounding. We thank you so much. There's no telling how much money you saved this organization, and you've been such a great sport. And I'd also like to say thank you to Rick Clark, who, in fulfilling Nancy's last wishes, did an incredible job of being the board chair. Rick never does the glamorous stuff. He just does and does and does. And sometimes that means 6 meetings a week for the Humane Society. He has negotiated every contract, every loan, and thank you for Citizens, by the way, for that. He's strengthened our partnerships with the county. We've never been on, had a better relationship with them. Reached out to our partner, the Humane Alliance, and has just done an amazing job of supporting the staff and always being there. And he actually pores over the financials and understands them and fixes them when they're not well. A lot of you who are donors are also volunteers, and I just want to mention our volunteers, many of whom are serving food and passing drinks tonight. And if you don't think they're important, they take the place, our volunteers, of 15 full-paid, full-time staff. That's how much we depend on them. That's how important they are to us, and we would not be making it without them. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And now I'm getting to the staff too. Echoing Catherine a little bit. We could have coordinated our remarks better, but we always say the same thing anyway. They are the group that gives and gives and gives from the heart. And the many different ways to donate. They've pretty much donated their lives to this cause. You don't get into this business if you want to make a lot of money. You get into animal welfare because your passion is the animals and speaking for those who can't speak. And everyone on the staff is so special. Troy, Hans, you're a delight to work with. Everyone is. But I too would like to mention the three people who have put in the longest hours, given up the most, and the most truncated personal lives, and that would be Jennifer Brailer, our director of all the shelter operations in both buildings. Her daughter thinks she's growing up at the Humane Society. And I should thank Jamie, her husband, who does an incredible amount of child care, because Jennifer's here till midnight, being locked. And has been since March. In March, the troika of Jennifer, Jim, and Catherine started meeting every Thursday night from the close of business until often midnight, planning this move. When we had our annual meeting a few days ago, Catherine was talking about staff, got to Jim Fulton and said, I give up, I can't say anything about this man. And we all feel the same way. Jim knows everything, does everything, is so devoted. I'm not sure he really has another address. He's here all the time. He's phenomenal. And this organization could not operate without him. And finally, there is Catherine. Catherine, a few months ago, 4 or 5 months ago, was happily our vice president and director of development. And then our much-loved, longtime director, Shelley Moore, took another job, just as we were about to move into this building. So then Catherine had 3 jobs, because we couldn't afford to hire anybody else, and we didn't have time to. So Catherine continued on being head of all development. That couldn't stop, because we needed the money. This is a very special events-driven economy. So she kept on doing that. She assumed all the executive director positions. And she also was the one in charge of planning the moves into this building, which was not unlike the Normandy invasion. The 3 hats proved to be too much for her, I'm sorry to say. So she did what every red-blooded American girl would do, and she canceled her wedding. It will take place in May, but it was supposed to take place November 6th, and it was just too much, and the animals came first, and thank you, Catherine. That was a pretty amazing thing to do. I know you had it planned right down to the last cupcake. And so here we are at the donors. Thank you so much. This is what you built. This is what you did. You changed the lives of so many thousands of animals for so many generations to come. There will be so many that pass through here that will live, that wouldn't have lived if it weren't for you. You've done such amazing things. And I would like to read every one of your names and thank every one of you personally, but then you'd be so bored you'd never give us another dime. So but there are a couple I do want to mention, and one are Bob and Ann Lewis, who gave the land for this building and gave us a tremendous legacy. Are known only to most of us as Marco Polo's parents. And I don't know if they got here tonight. I know we were expecting them. You still want to be just known as Marco Polo's parents? Marco Polo's parents matched at the very beginning. They challenged the board to raise as much money as they could, and they matched it. And the board gave and gave and gave, and they gave and gave and gave, and we got over a quarter of the way to the first goal, thanks to these wonderful people. And Marco Polo wants you to know he thinks you're really swell. Not many cats get parents like that. And last, I'd like to mention amongst of our major donors, a couple that's not only they came in within the last year. And they've supported us amazingly financially, but it's really their heart and their spirit that has just floored us all. It's Elaine and Jerry McGuire. Elaine took a young friend through the Lee's Creek shelter one day on a whim. Met Jim Colt and fell in love with Jim Colt, and everybody falls in love with Jim Colt. Looked around and said, "This can't be. This should not be." In the last year, she's arranged 3 events for us. She has brought in her friends, many of whom are here tonight. She's just been a driving force. There's nothing that we really can't ask her for, and Elaine doesn't make happen. She and Jerry have been phenomenal, and we can't thank you enough. You're the nicest thing that's happened to us in a long time. And to the rest of you, to emphasize what you have done, here in the midst of a recession, when all your pledges come in, you don't forget those, we are not going to have a mortgage. In this economy, that's what you did. Your love for the animals, your devotion, your incredible generosity, all of you who dug deeply and gave. We think we're not going to need one. And that's all. There's a line from the Petite Promise by Saint-Exupéry that says something to the effect that you're always responsible for what you have grown, retained, and I think what he means in the context of the story is not responsible as in a heavy drudgery hanging around your neck, but that when you have grown something, you become part of it and it becomes part of you. And I hope all of you will stay part of the Asheville Humane Society and work with us and keep us alive, because this is your baby. You did this, and we are beyond grateful. There's one more couple and one more person I'd like to recognize. Catherine alluded a little bit to the story. We raised, long before my time, $2 million, and thought, good for us, let's build a building. And then, surprise, we were just $1 million short. Our capital campaign managers, couple wonderful volunteers, and I might add, our bumper stickers all say adopt, volunteer, donate. The Brummets do all 3. Ernie Brummett is a lucky boy. Had, volunteered mightily, raised that $2 million, and then in the middle of the recession, we asked them to come back and raise $1 million more. We did throw in a secret weapon to help them, and that was Ralph Simpson, who didn't charge us very much and wound up, I think, working for less than minimum wage when we count all the hours he put in, and then pledged most of it back to us. So with the combination of Joe and Janet Brummett and Ralph Simpson and all of you, we did it. We raised the last of the money. And I'm going to ask Joe and Janet to make the first cut in the cake, and then an expert, which is Cakes by Jane, so make sure you stick around for the cake, because it isn't just a beautiful cake, it's raspberry, sour cream, cheese, pound cake. Raspberry filling. And so as soon as Janet cuts it, Jean, our expert cake cutter, is going to list it off and carve it up, and I hope you will all stay happy and continue with cocktails and a wonderful evening. Thank you all.